Letter 128 to the Earl of Cassillis. John Kennedy, 6th Earl of Cassillis, was the son of Gilbert Kennedy, Master of Cassillis, which is 6 miles from Ayr. He was served heir to his uncle, John, 5th Earl of Cassillis, in 1616. His lordship was a person of considerable talents, of great virtue, and a zealous covenanter. Having studied under Dr. Cameron, principal of the College of Glasgow, a great defender of absolute government, he could not yield to some clauses in the first draft of the covenant, which seemed to vindicate the use of defensive arms against the king. But he agreed to the covenant as it now stands. He sat in the Glasgow Assembly, 1638, as elder from the Presbytery of Ayr, and was one of the 3 ruling elders sent to the Assembly of Divines at Westminster in 1643. He was one of the commissioners who, in March 1650, went from Scotland to Breda to treat with Charles II. He attended at the crowning of Charles at Scone, January 1st, 1651. So strongly attached was he to the royal family that when on one occasion Cromwell summoned him to a meeting, instead of attending it, he, along with some ministers and his chaplain, kept a day of fasting and prayer in his family. On the other hand, such was his hostility to the measures of the court in establishing prelacy and in ejecting the Presbyterian ministers from their charges, that he seldom paid stipend to any of the curates intruded into their places, till compelled by a charge of horning. Wodrow designates him the great and worthy Earl of Cassillis. I have this account, says he, of the Earl of Cassillis, that he was singularly pious, and a man of a very high spirit, who carried with a great state and majesty. His carriage in his family was most exemplary and religious. He was very much in secret duty, and had his hours wherein none had access to him. Upon the Sabbath his carriage was singular. He usually wrote the sermon, and at night caused his chaplain to examine all his servants and his children, even after they were pretty big, upon the sermon. And everyone behoved to give their notes, and after all, many times he took out his own papers and read to them. When at Edinburgh, Lauderdale sent a servant to him upon a Sabbath night, telling him he was coming to wait on him. Presently he called Mr. Violante, his chaplain, and ordered him to go out and meet Lauderdale, and tell him that if he designed a Sabbath's day visit, he was very welcome, but he would discourse upon no other thing with him but what was suitable to the day. Lauderdale came up and discoursed with him, as he could very well do, only upon points of divinity. Wodrow's Analecta. His lordship died at his own house in the West in 1668. The mansion is near Dalrymple. It is on the banks of the Doon, and embosomed in wood, with a hill called the Doonans facing the house. It is a confused pile of building. A long avenue of fine old trees lead up to it. Honour of testifying for Christ, my very noble and honourable Lord, I make bold out of the honourable and Christian report I hear of your lordship, having no other thing to say but that which concerneth the honourable cause which the Lord hath enabled your lordship to profess. To write this, that is your lordship's crown, your glory, and your honour, to set your shoulder under the Lord's glory, now falling to the ground, and to back Christ now, when so many think it wisdom to let him fend for himself. The shields of the earth ever did, and do still believe, that Christ is a cumbersome neighbour, and that it is a pain to hold up his yeas and nays. They fear that he take their chariots, and their crowns, and their honour from them. But my Lord standeth in need of none of them all. But It is your glory to own Christ and his buried truth. For let men say what they please, the plea with Zion's enemies in this day of Jacob's trouble is, if Christ should be king, and no mouth speak laws but his. It concerneth the apple of Christ's eye, and his royal privileges, what is now debated, and Christ's kingly honour is come to yea and nay. But let me be pardoned, my dear and noble Lord, when I beseech you by the mercies of God, by the comfort of the Spirit, by the wounds of our dear Saviour, by your compearance before the Judge of quick and dead, to stand for Christ and to back him. Oh, if the nobles had done their part and been zealous for the Lord, it had not been as it is now. But men think it wisdom to stand beside Christ till his head be broken, and sing dumb. There is a time coming when Christ will have a thick court, and he will be the glory of Scotland, and he will make a diadem, a garland, a seal upon his heart, and a ring upon his finger, of those who have avouched him before this faithless generation. Howbeit, ere that come, wrath from the Lord is ordained for this land. My Lord, I have cause to write this to your lordship, for I dare not conceal his kindness to the soul of an afflicted exiled prisoner. Who hath more cause to boast in the Lord than such a sinner as I, who am feasted with the consolations of Christ, and have no pain in my sufferings, but the pain of soul sickness, of love for Christ, and sorrow that I cannot help to sound aloud the praises of him who hath heard the sighing of the prisoner, and is content to lay the head of his oppressed servant in his bosom under his chin, and let him feel the smell of his garments. It behoved me to write this, that your lordship might know that Christ is as good as he is called, and to testify to your lordship that the cause which your lordship now professeth before the faithless world is Christ's, and that your lordship shall have no shame of it. Grace be with you. Your lordship's obliged servant, Samuel Rutherford, Aberdeen, March the 13th, 1637.